This is episode 8 with Dr. Jane Guyn. Welcome to the Reignite podcast. My name is Todd Judkins, a former naval officer and corporate consultant turned life coach, and each week we'll bring you an inspirational person or message to help you discover how to reignite your life, get back in the game, and thrive in everything you do. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's light the fuse and reignite. Today, Reignite Nation, we have Dr. Jane Guyn on the show. She is a professional sex coach and holds a Ph.D. in Human Sexuality. More important, Dr. Jane is on a mission to reignite your sex life. Dr. Jane is the author of the best-selling book, Too Busy to Get Busy, How to Fix Your Almost Sexless Relationship. You know, today we are not afraid to discuss many important issues in our lives: kids, money, vacation plans, and even the taboo subjects of religion and politics. But when it comes to that three-letter word, SEX, this topic is off the table. Well, Dr. Jane will share her B.E.D.R.O.O.M model, and that's an acronym, folks, for reigniting your sex life. If you feel you have no time, no energy, can't talk about it, just don't want to, body's not working right, or have no partner, this conversation's for you. Be sure you stay to the end of this podcast when I ask Dr. Jane the one thing she recommends that you do today to reignite your sex life. Warning, if you're looking for salacious material, you're going to have to look elsewhere. This conversation is for serious people who want to take their relationship to new heights. So even though this episode is listed as explicit by topic, we've kept the language to a PG rating. So if you're not too busy to get busy, let's get started with Dr. Jane Guyn. Well, no, Reignite Nation. Today we have Dr. Jane Guyn with us today. Dr. Jane is the author of the book, Too Busy to Get Busy, a certified sex coach, and the queen of happy endings. How are you today, Dr. Jane?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show to speak with your listeners today, Todd.
Oh, I think this is awesome. You know, we're all about reigniting, How do we put the passion back into our careers? How do we put it back into our life, our health? And I can't think of a better topic than how we put the passion and reignite our sex life. So, Dr. Jane, I think this is a perfect fit, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
We're talking about my favorite topic.
All right. So, Dr. Jane, tell me, how did you arrive at the point you are right now? I know at one point you were that super hard-charging mom, and then kind of everything disintegrated. Why don't you take us through that story on how you got here today?
Yeah, wow. Thank you for asking about that. Started out my career as a nurse. I was trained at UCLA, and I met my handsome husband in the intensive care unit. So I was the student nurse. He was the young, handsome intern. And we had an amazingly sexy, hot, fun, erotic relationship from the very beginning. In fact, my mom used to say to me when she walked in the room that she felt like she needed to have a bucket of water to just throw on us because you could just tell that we were that couple. We were just hot couple.
That's awesome. I love that. And then with UCLA, I'm just thinking, soap operas and everything, intern in the emergency room. Yeah.
You got it.
I have a visual.
Yeah. In fact, along the way, we worked in this hospital together, as I mentioned, and we, it was just like Grey's Anatomy, where, we'd see each other. And that was back in the day when the nurses wore the white socks, the stockings, and the hat and the whole thing. So, I was be walking along there. And there was this one moment, this episode, where he left a note for me in a patient's chart, actually. And then he asked me, if I could meet him in a conference room. And we had this really sexy, erotic time in the conference room. And the janitor, you could hear him rumbling by, the night janitor with his cart, and the door didn't lock. And it was just like absolutely smoking hot. And I must say, I still have that note in my wallet right now.
Wow. That was one heck of an experience.
It was. But I didn't find the note for a long time because, we got married. We had a big family. We actually have 6 children together. Yeah. And 3 came to us in the traditional manner, and 3 are adopted, born in Korea. We had this beautiful big family. We lived in many interesting places. We lived in Saudi Arabia. We lived in Germany. We lived in the Midwest. And I became more and more engaged with my kids over those years of parenting. I really loved being a mom, and I got involved with a lot of other women who were doing this similar kind of super mom kind of living. We were very gung-ho, as you mentioned, really into it. Yeah, I must tell you that that same woman who was sizzling hot in the conference room, some years later, was photographed, and I'm going to find this photo, but was photographed at a family wedding wearing the floral print dress that matched her kids' clothes, legit.
Oh my gosh, what happened? What happened to the conference room to the floral dress?
Oh, and at the time, it makes me actually blush to think about it because it felt like a good fashion choice at the time, but I showed up in this dress and my brother-in-law just gave me so much crap about it. He was just like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" So anyway, I had my floral dress. It was matching with two girls, and I don't remember that my little boy at that time had the shorts, but he might have had the shorts. I don't recall. Anyway, so there I am, like up to my neck in this mom life. I was the woman who made the homemade Halloween costume with the paper mache head. I was the cookie mom. I was the Girl Scout leader. I was the PTO volunteer. I was just like, woo, I just did everything. So my husband's a patient soul, and we still had a good relationship, but this wore on. And after a while, I started to get kind of just, I was still doing it, but I was wearing out. And my attitude about it had really kind of irritable. I started to feel this lack in my life because I had been just doing this all this time.
So it was that, just giving it all to your kids and everything else eventually just kind of fell by the wayside?
Yeah, I realized that he would go to work, and at that point, then I'd been working from home, as I put it at the time.
Okay,
I was very offended if somebody said, "You don't work," because I work from home. I ended up feeling really just annoyed. I would be like, okay, he'd call me from work and, like, hello. And I'd be, hello. And he'd say, hey, how's it going? And I'd be like, okay, I'm picking up Cheerios. I've got to go to soccer. Somebody threw up. The dog ran off. I don't know. I always had some annoyed family thing to report when he called me from work in those days.
Yeah. So what was the pivotal moment? Where did you hit that low point?
Well, so it was 2009. Wow. We were married we met in 1979, but this was in 2009. And I realized that my beloved husband, with all the stuff that was going on, there was somebody at work who actually wasn't as annoyed as I was. And she was actually super helpful and sweet and nice and cute and younger. And I realized along the way that he'd gotten close to this woman. And that was just mind-boggling to me. Because remember, we were that sizzling hot couple.
I still remember the conference room.
Yep, the conference room. So it wasn't that they actually had a physical affair. That's not what happened. But it didn't matter to me that it wasn't, the kind of thing that we read about, the physical affair. It was the emotional affair and the fact that she was there for him in a very different way than I was in terms of the way she was. They had feelings. And wow, that just blew me out of the water. And I hadn't known that I was getting into that kind of territory in my relationship. Because I was pretty self-absorbed. I didn't see it from his perspective. And I was super mom, man.
Wow. That's a pretty low moment. Given all that, there's a lot of choices you could have made. How did you choose to take the path you took that got you to where you are today?
Well, I'd always been interested in the topic of sex because I was a nurse. So I'd done some studying about sex at UCLA. We had classes. Nurses are trained probably more than a lot of providers about sex. And I just wondered what had happened to me. How is it that I ended up here? I was just stunned. It's like I'd been transported by aliens or something, and I was all of a sudden in the mothership, and it was like, what happened? And I knew that if this had happened to us, a couple like us, where, we felt invincible, that it was pretty likely that it was happening in other relationships too. So that's when I started this journey of learning about all the ways that sex gets confusing for us when we lose who we are as sexual beings, and, like some of the things that happen between two people, or as I learned over time, sometimes between more than two people. Yeah, so I learned all these things about sex, and I went on this journey to become a sex expert, which I am now. And it's kind of like a huge change from what I was doing in that, like, it was a purple floral dress, purple with, like all these little flowers. But yeah, so it's been a big transition for me since 2009.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, because a lot of people come to those moments and tend to take a more negative route, and divorces are prevalent. You chose to kind of take a look at yourself and then turn that into a big positive to go forward. And now you're out here sharing that knowledge with the rest of us. That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for listening.
You are also a core energy life coach.
Yeah.
What is that? Can you explain to us what that is?
Well, what happened is, as I was going on this journey learning about sex, I got trained as a professional sex coach. So I'm actually one of the first certified professional sex coaches in the country. And so I know I have all this information about sex and about coaching, but I wanted to be able to go deeper with my clients using a modality that would allow them to release a lot of barriers, because I realized it's not just knowing, it's also being and embodying. So I decided to train in this modality called energy coaching, which is done through a school out on the East Coast in New Jersey. It's called IPEC, one of the best coaching companies in the country. And I learned about the 7 levels of energy, and I help my clients move through those levels.
Are those like the chakras?
They are analogous to the chakras. They're in that there are 7, and 2 of them are considered below the line. So the first and second are below the line. And when we are below the line, we use up a lot of our energy. It's very uncomfortable for us. So level 1 and level 2 are really uncomfortable. And level 1, I call why me. It's a victim place. And I was just totally hanging out there when I was super mom. Man, I was all about that. Like, why me? I've got to do the mac and cheese again. Or, I don't know. Anyway, so many things that were irritating to me. And wow, I was right down underneath that line.
Wow. That's good. And that just so integrates into your work, helping people with sexual issues. It seems like a natural match. At Reignite, we look at meditation, mindset, but our real area of focus is sleep. That's kind of the secret sauce. I'm known as the sleep whisperer, but, taking everything from the neck up, and that just seems to be a natural play because I look at energy as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, what are some of the common problems that people have with sex?
Thanks for asking that. I have all sorts of solutions, and we'll hopefully talk a little bit about the solutions in a little bit using a simple model. But when it comes to the problems, you watch your television or, maybe you go to the doctor, all sorts of, there are a lot of technical terms for the problems that people might have with sex. But I've come up with 5 simple problems. Okay. And the first one is no time and no energy. And this is really a common complaint. Like, I'm so busy. This is why I wrote my book, Too Busy to Get Busy. Okay. I'm so busy. I can't possibly, I don't have time for that. I'm exhausted. I have so many things going on. If I had a lot of time, we'd be having a lot of sex. In truth, the research shows the sex doesn't take that long. But talking about everything that's wrong actually does take forever. So, that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's number 1.
Yep. What's the next one?
Okay. Number 2, can't talk about it. So, yeah.
I hear that a lot.
You bet. Yeah. Because you have what's referred to as the talk. The talk is oftentimes makes things worse, makes it more awkward. Somebody gets their feelings hurt. So can't talk about it. Big problem.
Why do you think that is?
Well, we've been socialized strangely about sex. We don't feel comfortable saying our truth because we've been taught that somehow Everybody else knows how to do it. Everybody else is great at it. We're the only people who don't have great, fabulous sex. And the only people we see having sex are either porn stars, and that's a bunch of hooey, or like fabulously lit actresses who are having some kind of a non-sex sex. I don't know. Those scenes are like can be fantastic, like the Notebook when he carries her up the stairs, soaking wet, and then she has all these multiple orgasms, and it's just no reality.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we compare ourselves to.
So we have the choice between a Notebook and watching porn videos to get our education on sex, and those both aren't real. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No wonder we can't talk about it. And sometimes it always seems to come down to communication.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I see myself as a sex communication specialist. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So what's number 3?
Okay. Number 3, don't want to.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, don't want to. Don't want to shows up in lots of different ways. And these 5 problems, there's a mix and match thing sometimes, no time, no energy, don't want to. But the basic core don't want to problem, is I don't feel turned on in this situation to be with you. And there are so many solutions to that problem. Yeah, so don't want to shows up, though, and it shows up in so many relationships. And many times we don't have any idea how to, even get past that, because it's such an uncomfortable feeling to recognize that your partner doesn't want to and you want to. It's like, dang, really hurt your feelings,
Yeah. And I'm sure that shows up on both sexes, right?
It does.
Yep. You hear that, guys?
Yep, it does.
We're in it just as much. So
yeah.
And what did you mean by mix match?
Well, when people are in that sense of don't want to, you might have a situation where one person is really, really turned on and really interested, and the other person, might just actually be exhausted. And when I say to my partner, I'd really like to get with you, and he's like, sorry, I'm really tired. If I take that personally, then I might feel like it's something about me and personalize that. So we misunderstand what is meant by the communication that happens.
Does that also go into sexual preference that might get misconstrued through a relationship?
Oh, completely. Okay. Yeah. Because what's really going on there, thank you for asking that, is oftentimes, and I hate to say this, but this is what's happening in our listeners' lives, there may be something happening where your partner just isn't getting satisfaction out of the sex that you're having. So don't want to may have nothing to do with their actual libido. It may have to do with the kind of sex you're having. And a lot of people don't realize that people fake their responses. And this is more for women, but a lot of women do pretend to have orgasm, for example. And they may actually have real orgasm by themselves with masturbation, but when with a partner, they fake it. There's a lot of reasons for that. And they don't want to do that. So that don't want to happens because they feel not only are they not getting pleasure, but they feel guilty, embarrassed, and just like, oh, brother,
Like they're deceiving and it's against their values.
Yep.
And that would be a big shutdown right there.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow. That was enlightening. All right.
It starts innocuously enough, too. I'll tell you what.
Okay.
This problem usually has its seed in an early connection with the partner. So maybe 2 people get together. I have a client couple. They got together when they were young. Neither of them knew that much about their bodies or each other. They had been raised conservatively, and so they got going, and and they expected great things because we come into the sex experience like, woo, it's going to be fabulous. I've watched The Notebook. I know about this stuff now. Right? So they get in there like, okay, good, and start having intercourse. And the vast majority of women need additional stimulation besides intercourse to have orgasm. So there she is, and her partner, really interested in her, hasn't had sex a lot. He's young, has an orgasm very quickly. He's done. Now she's like, So the next time, she knows she wants to please him and make him feel like he's satisfying her. So the next time she kind of fakes it. Like, oh, yes, I did. And then he's like, great. Oh, I feel so good about it. you were satisfied and I was satisfied. Now the lie is born.
Yep.
There's nothing to, after that happens, what do you do?
Yep.
Now you're a year in, you're 18 months in, you're 2 years in. What do you do now? Like, the last 24 months, I actually haven't been having orgasm.
Yeah.
What do you say then? It's like, what do you mean? So this is what happens when we don't show up authentic in the beginning.
Wow.
But I just want to say, you can change it right now, even without telling him that you've been faking it. There's a way to do that and still get what you want.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of those people that set up the big domino displays, and if they're setting it up and it's like 10,000 pieces and one falls over, and to kind of disrupt the pattern, they got to go down the line and knock it away so it doesn't ruin it. It seems like once that lie is born, the first domino falls, but you can stop it from disrupting your whole relationship if you just address it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because when you have an authentic moment with your partner, even if everything's been off track forever and you've been faking it or whatever, but you get that all out of the way, you clear those dominoes and you create something that's actually amazing together, it's okay. Everything's good now. It's like you're reigniting. You are taking that moment of like, I got this now. And it's so exciting for both people.
Yeah. Awesome. So we were at number
3. Now we're on number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah?
Okay.
Right. So number 4, body won't work right. This comes up in all sorts of areas. So it could be erectile dysfunction, which is, this is all over the television. You're watching, CNN, and there goes erectile dysfunction, whatever. Seems so strange to me. It could be early ejaculation in the guy, where he has his orgasm way too fast, and sometimes that means he can't even enter his partner. It could be something where she has vaginal dryness or problems like that. Maybe she's menopausal, perimenopausal, or has had surgery of some sort. It could also be something as simple as like back injury. There's so many of us with serious back injuries. I go to yoga. I see these yogis, and they're fabulous. I think, wow, they must have great sex, and they probably do. But, it's not like you have to be an acrobat to have great sex. But, if you're in chronic pain from a back injury, it's hard to have the kind of sex life you want. So there's a lot of things that come into the category of body won't work right. And there are a lot of solutions to those things, some of them hormonal, some of them mechanical, all sorts of things that you can do to fix those things, and using the bedroom model that we'll talk about later. So yeah, body won't work right is one of the things. And I have people say, well, I'd like to talk to you, but my body won't work right, or in some variation or another. Like I'm overweight, I can't do it anymore, or I hurt my knee, I can't do it anymore, or I have this other problem, I can't do it anymore. So, but there are lots of different ways to be sexual. We don't have to have notebook sex for it to be great.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people need to realize that there is a lot of ways to be sexual. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And what's the 5th and final one?
Okay, the 5th and final one is no partner. And the thing about no partner is, if you have had a relationship or times in your life when you've been struggling with one of the other 4 problems or a couple of them, and now, maybe you're divorced, maybe you're widowed, something's happened in your life, or you're a widower where you don't have a partner, or maybe you're single and you haven't had a partner up until now, a serious partner. Wow, what do you do? Because you got to get naked again. And you have this history of these things having happened. And it's like, is it even worth it to get naked with a new person? And then, I don't know, just so many things there, like, oh, brother, what if, he's not good at talking about it. He's not a good communicator. What if he doesn't desire me? Or what if my libido falls off again, like it did in the last one, and he's really upset? So I'm just going to skip it. But when people can solve the problems, then bringing a new partner in, maybe it's a new marriage, maybe it's, there's so many ways it could be. That is easy to solve when these other things are in place.
Okay. Yeah, I can remember way back when I took freshman psychology in college, the professor saying that all sex starts in the head. And it seems like 4 of the 5 problems you just talked about were really things that are dealing with our psychology.
You bet.
Yeah.
And even the 4th, body won't work right, is too. It is too.
Okay.
For example, I'll tell you an example about that. I have a client. She's young and beautiful. I think she's maybe 49. It's young and beautiful to me. She's gone through menopause early. So she was really surprised and disappointed that when that happened, intercourse became excruciating for her, like fire down there, like as they say, down there.
Down there in the area, huh?
Whenever he would touch her inside her body, she felt like it was on fire.
Yeah.
So she's married and has this great, sexy, fun life and no kids, a couple of dogs, great, fun jobs, happy. But then this thing happens. So there are a lot of people, when that happens, they like quit sex. Like, okay, it hurts really bad. I'm not going to do it anymore. But this woman didn't do that. She just created an alternative plan. So she still had number 4, body won't work right. But she decided that they had always liked mutual oral sex, also known as 69. They'd always liked that. So they just created that as their main dish.
Wow.
And that's their sex. And she said, nobody's complaining. So, they worked around the problem. They created a workaround. There's always a workaround for any of these issues. And the fact that you work in the sleep area, number 1, no time and no energy, really important to get sleep. Because that's like the key solution to at least the energy component of that.
Oh, absolutely. I tell people that your bedroom is for 2 purposes, sleep and sex. And that is it. Get rid of the TVs, any blue light, and just get some rest, and you will be re-energized. Your hormones will be in balance. Your circadian rhythms will be imbalanced, and it goes towards your mental outlook. It goes through your sexual health, everything. So that's awesome, Dr. Jane. Now, you just told us about 5 problems that you commonly see out there, and I know you have a solution. So why don't you share with us, what is your solution, and how do you take your clients through this solutioning part when they have any one or any combination of these 5 common problems you find in the bedroom?
Okay. I help my clients understand how sex has shown up in their lives. And we start really with a retrospective of what sex has been like and what has happened to bring them to where we are today. And we all have a history. So, some of us have struggled with very difficult things. Others of us have just been socialized away from being sexually expressive. Some of us were super mom and have to hang up the supermom apron and put away the Girl Scout cookies to be able to become sexual again. There's lots of stories, and that's why I love my job. It's such a fascinating part of life. So we start there, and then we begin to help. And I have a proven 5-step model for this, and that's the beginning of it, is like understanding kind of what we've been talking about today, Todd. Talking about how sex is showing up and what types of things have caused us to feel so disconnected and kind of, isolated and just like off about it. And then we cycle through opening communication, and there's tips and tricks for that, because if you do it wrong, it may actually make things work. And then my clients learn to voice their needs in the bedroom using this other process, which is 7 variables using the word bedroom. So that's where you find the secret sauce to solve those problems.
So bedroom is an acronym.
Yeah, it is. Bedroom's an acronym. So I'll go through that with you quickly. Okay. We won't have time to dig into it completely, but when people work with me more closely, that's what they dig into. So B is body. We've talked a little bit about that. E is environment. And there's low-hanging fruit for many of us. You alluded to that when you talked about the bedroom, the blue lights. People often have devices, not of a sexy type. I'm talking about TVs, laptops, iPads, phones, that kind of thing.
Yeah, things I call sleep killers.
Exactly, and sex killers.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
You bet. Environmental changes can really improve sex. Then we come to D for desire. And desire is multifactorial as well, and it usually is connected with another aspect of the bedroom model. Then the relationship is R. Sometimes that's huge because there are cases where somebody's in a really incompatible relationship. They might, I've had situations where someone is, I'll tell you a little bit about a client story. A woman who came to me as a lesbian, and she had a problem with D, desire, and R, relationship. So she actually desired men. and she was in a relationship with women. And it was interesting because what had happened in her life is she had been intimidated and hurt by men, not physically hurt, but really embarrassed. And it just hadn't been, she'd been afraid of them and just the way that it all worked. But she was really attracted to men, but she defaulted to women because they were easier.
That's very interesting, and that's got to be very confusing through a relationship.
Yeah.
To have that and to somehow suppress that, right? And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that, you know, are brought up in a conservative family and, you know, feel desires for, you know, the same sex, but, you know, that's taboo. So they kind of pretend and go through life. And, you know, one day they wake up and say, this isn't right. This is not me. This is not who I am.
Right.
Wow.
That is exactly right. And that's a more typical way that D and R would fit is you're a married gay man, you're married to a woman, and you realize you're gay, and at some point, or you're a lesbian woman, you're married to a man, and at some point, the problem with the sex life you're having is that you actually have sexual attraction, you're actually sexually drawn toward someone of your same sex, and you're married to somebody else. So that's the relationship, and there are also other things in that component about how is sex affecting your relationship. So are you looking at maybe a divorce because you haven't been sexual? So, like, how serious is this thing? Is this going to end?
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. That's the bed and the relationship of the R. What are the rest of the components?
Okay, so we've got two O's because I'm a sex coach, so we got to have two O's. Actually, not necessary, but in this case, it's there. So the first O is openness.
I think I can guess the second O.
Yeah, you can. The second O, yep, you can guess it. It's orgasm. So when I say openness, I don't mean like, you know, some people will be like, does that mean like swinging or something? And that is not it. So openness is how open are you in your life to sex and what has closed you down in your life. And, you know, that has to do with different things that have happened. Some of them we've talked about in the 5 different basic sex problems. Energy is one of them. Emotion, maybe your husband had an affair, you're really jealous and upset. Your eroticism, empowerment. Anyway, it's a fun area because many people come in with a lot of blocks in openness. And then orgasm. Orgasm we talked about. And just helping people get in touch with their orgasm and being more kind of like open-minded about orgasm.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Seems like I'm driving everything back to sleep, but this is just so how related our topics and our passion are is because, you know, one of the things I tell people, if you want to get a great night's sleep, have an orgasm.
Yeah, right. I think they call that a soporific, don't they?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's really great for sleep. And it's also interesting that we have these attitudes, values, and beliefs about orgasm where we think that orgasm is supposed to be a certain way. And it's supposed to be, it has to be a certain like decibel level. And it also has to be like we have to sometimes people think they have to be in a certain position or so opening your mind about orgasm is really important and allowing yourself to have a bigger kind of view around your orgasm.
All right. And then the final M
is mindfulness.
Oh,
and
love it. Love it.
Right.
Love it.
Right. Mindfulness, getting out of your way, getting out of your own way with your thoughts, and then actually engaging in mindfulness practices like mindfulness-based breathing. Sometimes people like to enter into tantric experiences in that space. And there's just a lot of things that we can do around mindfulness that will allow us to expand sexually.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, you know, I'm just sitting here and just totally engaged in this conversation. It's just so fascinating and just so interrelation about what we need to do, how we reignite. And it just got me thinking about one of the things that I want to ask you, and this is just totally off the cuff. How do you see modern day life affecting human sexuality? And I'm thinking around, you know, just the wide availability of pornography and the images on the internet and just how our youth have grown up on computer and with that as an example. It seems like they're getting inundated with these images and how it's supposed to be. Do you see that as something that's not looking good for mankind in the future?
Well, that's interesting. I was on a live last night, a Facebook Live with a woman who's just a super blogger and has a lot of interesting content around her, a lot of sexual content that she talks about. She's got one of the number one blogs about relationships. And so she has this huge following, and we did this joint Facebook Live. And one of the questions that her community asked her was about porn specifically. And a woman wanted to talk about the fact that her partner, a husband, a male, wasn't able or willing to be with her sexually if they didn't have porn streaming. He couldn't get turned on, he couldn't have orgasm if they didn't have porn going. And she felt really bad because it kind of had entered into their relationship earlier, and then it ended up kind of like permeating their relationship, and it wasn't hot for her. Anymore. I mean, I think at some point it had been fun for her, at least to an extent, but she started to feel like there were other people in the room, and that wasn't what turned her on. So that's one piece, and I just want to hold that over here. And then another area of concern is what porn teaches us and how we think sex is based on what we see on porn. So do we think that we're supposed to be, some of the things my colleagues and I often laugh about is like how there's all this it's almost like a cowgirl kind of a thing, like she's slapping her butt or he's slapping her butt, and it's almost like this formulaic kind of sex thing. And of course, it's all done so the camera can see, which is not a good feeling. It's just like camera angle. Yep. And so people who don't have any other experience outside of that feel like that's it. And then the women's responses are very exaggerated. There's no conversation. So in answer to your question, porn isn't a good teacher of what real sex looks like and what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel like. It's not a thing. But it is really stimulating to some people. And I think some people, usually males, men, can get really connected to porn in a way that, distracting to their real relation, their in IRL relationship, right? The in real life thing. Yep. It's like the woman doesn't have the same kind of genitals. They think she's somehow inadequate or something, or the perfect augmented breasts. It really has added a layer of insecurity to women who kind of compare themselves to these women on porn.
Wow. Fascinating. Well, Dr. Jane, you have really filled up this time with some deep value, and it's just been awesome to talk to you. And I know people are going to want to reach out to you, get some more information. How do they get in contact with you?
Okay. I would love to give every one of our listeners a downloadable copy of my book, Too Busy to Get Busy. And here's how to get it. So please text your name and email to 541-444-0112, and you'll get your downloadable book. The full book. Love to give it to you. And if you have any questions, please shoot me an email. That email address is my personal email. I will respond to you. I read every email that I get. So I would be honored if you let me know how you like the book, how did it work for you. So I'd love to offer that. And also, if you feel that a strategy session with me, a lover's journey discovery session would be your next best move, please email me, jane@janeguyn.com, and we'll set up a time and we can get on the phone, see what's the next best thing for you.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome, Dr. Jane. Just simply awesome. All right. So I always provide one question for my guest before they leave, and this one's for you. What if I can only take one actionable step? What step would that be to reignite my sex life?
Learn to kiss.
Learn to kiss. Love it.
Yeah.
Learn to kiss.
I'm just writing an article about that right this second. The 5 things you can do to drive your lover crazy with your mouth. And the first one is kiss. And learn to be the best kisser for your partner. Talk to your partner about how she likes it and practice it. And you'll learn so much about her sexually if you know how to kiss her beautifully, because that's the key right there. Always be shaved if you're a guy before you go for a passionate kissing session, because it hurts our faces if you don't. Brush your teeth. If you want to have a beautiful kissing session, be sure you're clean. Put on a little cologne if she likes that. Make sure you're shaven. She loves that. and just say, hey, baby, I want to learn how to kiss you. How do you like it? And then listen. That would be my tip.
Wow. And I think that is the absolute perfect way to end this session. Dr. Jane, thank you so much. Everybody will have all of Dr. Jane's information in the show notes. We'll be blogging about that, and we'll be linking right to her site so you can get a hold of that information when she publishes it. Thank you, Dr. Jane. Really appreciate you coming on the Reignite podcast, and you have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Reignite podcast. If this episode resonated with you in any way, please share it with a friend. One of the greatest experiences human beings is being able to mastermind as a group, where we get together and collectively share and build off of each other's energy. Reigniting is no longer about accepting life as it comes, but designing the life you desire. We are committed to bringing you thought-leading and thought-provoking discussions to inform and motivate you in finding the joy in your journey, no matter what road you choose to take. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Todd Judkins, or send me an email at connect@toddjudkins.com. I'd love to hear about your struggles, your successes, and your thoughts. Thank you for listening, Reignite Nation. And always remember, the joy is not only in the destination, but what life has to offer in the journey. We'll be back with another full episode on Tuesday and with a short Reignite message on Friday just to jumpstart your weekend. Until then, keep that fuse lit and reignite.